Hello to all you poker players out there, and welcome back to the nerdy side of poker and pot Limit Omaha. Yesterday I was breaking down some stats. At least I tried. I will admit that I am not very structured in the way I make these videos, but it's kind of part of it. I think I said it in one of the first or two videos that this is a kind of my way of showing how I am trying and approach it. So when I've done this multiple times, I would probably have a better structure to what it is I'm doing. But one of the things I was thinking about, like I didn't mention yesterday, was to take a look at like where should these like numbers like small blind, big blind be like when you play PLO 25 and the small blind is not the half of a big blind. It's like 10 cents, and if we take these 4,246 hands and say that if I fold it every time, then I should lose $424.60, and I lose $304.54. So I kind of defend my small blind like a-okay, and if we take like the big blind, 4,185 hands times 0.25 cents. If I fold every time, I should lose $1,046.25, and I lose $550. So close to cutting it in half. I don't know quite where then how far down you can get these numbers. Like I said yesterday, there's definitely more hands I can defend in the big blind versus the button, for example. A lot of improvement potential there. So I think the reason why I actually get these numbers this far down is probably more due to the wildness and lack of skills there is in the player pool I play in. So but I would like to know kind of what these numbers should be for very good players, or let's say big winners at PLO 25. That could be interesting. I mean, we are not good. We are not so good when we are playing down here on PLO 25. That is a reality. So if it was like a PLO 500 rec, would have completely different skill set and different numbers. But for the biggest winners in PLO 25, it will really be interesting to see what their numbers are down here. So nevertheless, I'm using this spreadsheet from the Jane Anders Poker that they have made. I shall leave a link to Jane Anders Poker down in the description below. I can highly recommend it, but for once in a blue moon, I actually have a little bit of an issue with this exact spreadsheet here. But nevertheless, I have filled it out, and this is for the first 100,000 hands I have played. So we see here that I am folding too much, not calling enough, and not free betting enough, and these numbers will reflect that. And when we go to the last 25,000 hands, then we will see here that I have improved this. So one of the things so these two first numbers, my fold and my call, is pretty reasonable, but my free bet could definitely be better. So I will also say that I have decided that after the first 25,000 hands here, I will not go into post-flop stuff. So it will be like this up here on the top, big blind versus cutoff and big blind versus button, and the cold calling stuff, and probably some free betting stuff. because I wanna keep this project moving forward, so I get some hands played. But and then during this next period of time, I will work on creating filters, so I get the correct filters for the post flop stuff. And then I will through this have set up all the pre-flop filters, so it will be easier for me after 50,000, 75,000 hands, and 100,000 hands to set up the filters much quicker. But the thing is about these numbers is like, when I've created this report here, then my call is 161 times, and my free bet is 41 times. So that's 202. But I have only seen the flop 200 times, so I was thinking, what the heck is going on? But what happens is if we just double click on this free bet pre-flop success, then we will see here that actually someone has folded 3 times. So now we're down to 199, which is like not either 200. And what is going on there is that I have sure. I have called a 4-bet pre-flop one time, and then we're up to 200. So that's fine. The thing about one of the problems I have with this spreadsheet is like this number here includes when the small blind has called. The button open, the small blind calls, and I call. Or the button open and the small blind folds and I call. Or the big blind call. And this we can actually see here. 125 times it's heads up, and 36 times it is with the small blind calling. We can see it's 161 times here. And the thing about having the small blind in here some of the time, first of all, the small blind should have a very narrow range and a very strong range when they are cold calling that. However, in these stakes, people call with all kinds of garbage in that position. And that's nice and good, and that actually should indicate for me that I should go ahead and free bet some more and squeeze some more. But my thing is that when we go to the post flop stuff, how often we fold to a flop C bet, then some of the times it's like 3 ways, and we can easily be sandwiched. If the small blind checks, we check, button bets, and the small blind goes ahead and check raises, and they check raise to some weird amounts sometimes. So a lot of the times that can be a reason why, at least for me, sometimes when I just fold pre-flop, because I think like it's gonna be some weird situations, and also when you go multi-way, you want kind of more nutty holdings. But that's also one of the things I'm thinking quite a bit about, is like, what kind of hands should I call some more with when it goes like these exact 3 ways with the button, small blind and big blind. It's like queen, king high, flush potential. Is that good enough? Yeah, stuff like that, or shall we stick to the ace high flush potential and stuff like that? Small to medium pairs, when we flop a set, do we want to stack off with the middle set versus some opponent? Yes. Versus other? Absolutely no way. But yeah, it's just like uh, these post flop numbers get skewed a little bit, I think, when we are freeway, and that's kind of my problem with this spreadsheet, that I don't think that this is taken into consideration, so to speak. But there's like kind of three ways around it. Like, one, I'm wrong. Two, I'm right. Three, I am too detail orientated. And it's probably the last. Because this is probably more made for giving like some kind of overall quick, maybe not quick, but some kind of overall look into a student's game plan. And then it can be up to the student self to do exactly what I do and break it down to some more stats. Another thing I think that was interesting, like when we take a look at these here with the flop, like a lot of the time it goes check check on the flop, and that goes away kind of. But how often do we fold to a c-bet? How often do we call a c-bet? How often do we check raise? But there's nothing about how often we lead donk lead and donk lead the flop. And as you can see here, I actually donk lead the flop 21% of the time, which I think is decent. I think it could be higher also. The thing that makes it, what shall I say? The reason why I don't have it higher is, now I will have to investigate it if I shall kind of confirm what I'm saying. But when I have future blockers, I am only donking with future blockers versus opponents I know that have a fold button. And a lot of the time I'm playing with opponents that I highly suspect not to really know where the fold button is. So if I start bloating the pot, because there is so many good cards that can come on turn and rivers, and I keep bloating on turn, and I know now I have like a big bet on the river to barrel them off what kind of hand they have, then they are just gonna click the call button so many times. I mean, I've seen it so many times. I'm not afraid of bluffing in some spots. It's funny enough because more than one time some has accused me in the chat to be the tightest guy in the pools. First of all, I can say there's 2-3 players that's way more tight than me. But yeah, I am tight and I do not stack off too light. But I am not afraid of firing 50 big blind bluff on the river if I think it's if I have the right kind of blockers or the right kind of hand and it's against the right kind of opponents. But a lot of opponents, they just call me down with like, yeah, not very strong holdings. So that could be the reason why this number is not quite high enough. I think it could go all the way up to between 25 and 30%. Depends on, of course, board textures, flop textures, and stuff like that. Another thing I was thinking a little bit about was how much equity shall we have to continue. And when it is open to 3x the pot, 3.5x the pot, then 3.5x the big blind is what I want to say. Then we need 67% equity, and when they only min open it, we need like 25% equity. Was it like that? I was. Let's take a look at it. Poker Tracker very nicely shows us that. Here we need 33% equity to call a 3.5 big blind open, and of course it's lower when it's when we have to invest less. I think it's 22% equity we need, and so I had a discussion with a guy who coached me like more than a year ago. If you kind of could put some percent of equity into the to the fact of having position, I said to him, if I say to you, what do you think if I say that you get 5% equity because you have position? And he said, I think it's reasonable, but it's just my way of thinking of things. Sometimes I don't know if that's valid in any way, but if you kind of, because realizability, what kind of hands realize their equity, distributes their equity smooth, or hit boards hard, and all that kind of stuff, also go into the consideration of what kind of hands and what kind of range you want to call with and free bet with and all that kind of things. So it's just putting up like the worst situation you can ever imagine, like this hand here, like the most premium hand. You can get double suited aces with Jack 10, and at least that's the most premium hand for me. And you take kind of the worst, like with an ace, because he has aces, so that's not a good card to have, and Jack and 7 and deuce and rainbow, and there you actually only have a 18% equity versus 82, is close to a no limit hand, or it is like a no limit hand, but so we can't go that wide to defend, but we can probably, if we kind of have a single suit here and we take that one with us, then we can probably get up to that 33% equity, but then we are out of position, so it's still going to be hard to defend that kind of hand. But it is something to think about, that actually do these math calculations a lot of the time, that how much equity do I actually need here, and do I have it when you consider if you want to call or free bet or fold a hand in the blinds. But it wasn't a whole lot of hands, but it was some thoughts about how to break down these numbers. And tomorrow I will come back with some more stuff. Probably we will go into the small blind versus the button before we go into so we have here kind of, we have not breaking all this down, but at least we have the numbers in. So we need, like, the big blind was the cutoff, but more like also the small blind here, down here, and the re-stealing process is interesting. I'm pretty good in the small blind versus these two positions, but we have to get the numbers in. Cold calling is going to be interesting to see how we're doing there, and also free betting, especially button versus cutoff on the button. All in all, it's going to be interesting, but that will come in later videos. That was it for now, and that of course became the double the length as I actually wanted to, but that's the way it is. I wish you all the best of luck out in life, and I will see you next time.